Hello to you dwellers and welcome. I'm the Arcadean and today we are looking at Skeleton Blademan, the Clone Wars. A really interesting deck that can put a lot of pressure onto your opponent once it gets underway. So let's take a look. As you can see, we're running three colors here. We're running light, mana, and dark. This is because we're going to need a lot of removal and a lot of control in the early game. We also require there to be dark for the Blademan, obviously, and mana for the clone spell. So let's take a look at them one by one. First of all, we have Holy Missile, standard one-cost removal spell, very useful to have, especially when you're going up against dark creatures. Next up is Firebolt, 2-cost mana removal. This is a very good spell. You can use this to remove even 1-cost creatures without, worrying too much about it, since we are really focusing on removal and control at level 1. Next up we have Turn to Frog, in case our opponent brings out anything super heavy that we can't immediately deal with, or if he brings out his own Blademan and we just need to quickly remove that off the board rather than going on with, Blademan Resurrection shenanigans. Next up we have Surprise Attack, 2-cost removal, always have that in any deck that runs light. And we have Animate Dead. Now this is in case of any shenanigans on our opponent's side with other Orperia decks or anything else. If we manage to kill one of their nice big creatures with a Turn to Frog and we happen to have the Animate Dead ready to go, boom, bring their big guy out for our own. Now of course they will only have 1 HP, so do be aware of that, but if they have a useful ability or something, then it can be very handy. Next we have Death Cloud. This is really useful when put up next to Skeleton Blademan because he doesn't really care about his HP being removed to being brought down to 1, because as soon as he dies he just turns into a Skeleton Knight, and then the Skeleton Knight dies and it turns into a skeleton, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stages where you can bring out Death Cloud to really hurt your opponent's creatures without suffering too much on your own behalf, in fact. Next up we have Drag to Hell, standard 2-cost dark removal. This has been nerfed since the Mabinogi Duel days, just so that any old veteran players are aware. 2, 4, and 5 now, rather than 2, 3, and 4. So it does get expensive later on, but again, it doesn't really matter in a Skeleton Blademan deck about using Drag to Hell, because even if you kill your own Blademan, it'll just transform. Next up we have Net Warrior. This is to take care of any creatures that don't have any useful abilities but do have really nasty attack values. Throw the Net Warrior in front of it and then no more problems. Next up we have Clone Creature. This is the second card around which this deck is built. You're going to use this on the Skeleton Blademan. Now you are going to be tempted from time to time to use it on an enemy Alron or Ifrit or something like that they might bring out, but don't. Not unless you've already got 2 Blademen out on the board and you've got more mana than you know what to do with. But you really want to conserve as much dark and as much mana as possible for level 2 to immediately bring out the 2 Skeleton Blademans. Next up we have a Firewall, standard AoE. You've got to have one of these in your deck, really, just to take care of any flood decks or spawner decks that may come your way. And now we have Orperia. Now once the Blademan dies and goes into the grave, you can immediately summon Orperia to bring the Blademan right back out again. So if you time this correctly, you can have 2 Blademen and a Skeleton Knight out onto the field at the same time. Now bear in mind that the Blademan card only goes into the grave when the original Blademan dies. If you clone the Blademan and the clone dies, Blademan card does not go into your grave. It has to be the original one that dies. And it only has to be Blademan that dies. Once it's died and transformed into a Skeleton Knight, that still counts as a death. It still goes into the graveyard, or Orperia can still bring it right back out again. And finally, of course, Skeleton Blademan himself, the card around which the deck is built. This guy just constantly transforms. You kill him once, he turns into a knight. You kill him again, he turns into a skeleton, and then you have to kill him a 3rd time to get him off the board. So your opponent is going to have to use a lot of resources to deal with just one of these Blademen, never mind 2. Now a standard counter to Blademan, of course, is transformation spells like Cocoon and Turn to Frog, but the advantage to the clone Blademan is that nobody runs more than 1 transformation as a general rule, so your opponent's going to have a lot of difficulty dealing with both of them at the same time. Try to wait until you hit level 2. If you're in a really solid position, you might want to wait for level 3, but that does run the risk of allowing your opponent to build up their resources as well. Bringing a Skeleton Blademan out and cloning it at level 2 is generally the best way to go. And never, ever, ever bring out the Blademan without first cloning it. Not unless you have a really good reason to do so. You could bring out the Blademan, wait for it to die, bring out the Orperia, and then hit the clone, but that's less efficient than going Blademan, clone, death, Orperia. Nevertheless, there are a few different ways that you can run this deck. So let's jump into a battle and see one of them. Okay, fight against Matthias D using the Mari hero, always interesting. So let's say hello, and see what they come up with. Okay, Giant Ant, an interesting creature to bring out right from the beginning. We'll remove that with surprise attack for an equal resource trade. Okay, so we're looking at a very aggressive player. We're probably going to need to, or I say that, but no, they've just charged up. Okay, so an initial aggression, but now they're trying to maintain resource parity, which makes sense. Will they go for aggressive play? They do. Mirror Ghost trying to stop us from leveling up, but we don't really care about taking 4 HP worth of damage, so let's go. No point in trying to remove a Mirror Ghost anyway. You only have a 50-50 chance of getting it correct. Again, we don't really mind too much about taking 4 HP worth of damage right now. We're just about ready to hit well, we are basically ready on this next turn to hit the Blademan clone creatures. Now, she charges up. Hopefully she won't play another creature. She doesn't. Okay, so that means that she's going to have a lot of resources, but we can deal with this not too difficultly. Skeleton Blademan goes out, not in front of the Mirror Ghost because we don't care. And then the clone does appear in front of the Mirror Ghost, which is fine. I would have preferred 12 damage out free on the board, but this is okay. I mean, there's a 50-50 chance that that'll kill both Mirror Ghosts anyway. So she brings out her own Skeleton Knight and Yoroma. Now, Yoroma could push the Skeleton Knight out of the way or could push the Mirror Ghost out of the way. Pushes the Mirror Ghost out of the way. All right. So we will charge up. That's pretty good. No point doing a drag to hell or anything like that, so we'll just continue to charge. And let's see what Matthias does. Now, Yoroma's not going to kill that Blademan, nor is the Skeleton Knight. Norka comes out onto the field. Okay, just a fairly heavy creature. All right, so the Mari ability did actually cause our Skeleton Blademan to die, but it's the clone version, unfortunately, so there's nothing we can really... well, we can't bring out Orperia, there's no point. So we'll level up to 3, and then the question is, do we want to answer that? I mean, no, let's just charge up. We could Death Cloud, but I prefer to do it after the skeleton that appeared, so we can do the Death Cloud on the next turn. Now that's 9 damage that's going to come out on us, leaving us with 14 HP. That's not ideal, that's 20 lower than our opponent, but we do have the Blademan out on the deck. Well, we do have the skeletons out on the deck. Now, our Blademan is dead now, so now we can use Orperia. But first of all, we'll use Death Cloud just to take everybody down to 1 HP. Then we'll use Orperia in front of the creature with the highest attack value. That brings out the Blademan once again, and we can charge up. So down goes the skeleton, down goes Yoroma. The Mirror Ghost is going to get 2 damage out on us, but that doesn't really matter. The Grand Elf Norka is going to go down next turn. Now she does have a lot of resources, but nothing that's really good for removal. She could discard into an ambush, but that would only kill the 2 Skeleton Knights, and they just transform into skeletons. She could discard into Earthquake, but that would kill all of her creatures. She's going for Succubus. Okay, that's a little bit difficult because we don't have the Firewall ready to go. We do have Firebolt, but, well, let's see. Let's see. So Mari's ability activates onto Orperia. We'll charge up. Now we could discard into Frog for the Succubus, but I don't think we will. Let's charge up a second time. 447 is not bad. We'll hit her with a Holy Missile. Doesn't quite kill her, but fortunately does take away enough armor that the Skeleton Knight kills her. And the Skeleton Blademan takes care of one of the Mirror Ghosts, which takes care of the other. And Norka goes down to Angel Orperia, leaving us with a very respectable, what is that, 16 plus 6? Yeah, so... A decent amount, 22 damage worth, well, 22 damage on the board. Down goes Orperia. which is it's unfortunate. We still have 14 damage ready to go. The fisherman kills the skeleton knight and transforms it into a skeleton. We're not too worried about that. We'll just continue to charge up, maintain as big a resource gap as possible, and now we have enough resources to summon another Blademan. When he goes down, we can simply revive from the grave and play him again. So at this point, our opponent is in a lot of trouble. We've got 2 transforming creatures. One of them can transform 1 more time. One of them can transform 2 more times. There's not really an awful lot she can do. She's just throwing out creatures to act as blockers at this point. So yeah, we'll just firebolt the Slash and Burn Farmer, and that will be it. Good job to our opponent. Well played. Nicely attempted, but there's just no beating this kind of pressure. As they recognize, this is infuriating. Still, well played to Matthias D, and good job to the Blademan. And that was the Blademan clone deck. As you can see, a really powerful deck once it gets underway, and one that takes your opponent a lot of resources and a lot of actions to answer. So if you'd like to try this deck in your own game, there's a share code up in the top right hand corner as always. And that's it for this video. So I hope it was helpful, I hope it was interesting. If you do decide to give the deck a try, then let me know how it goes, any tweaks or adjustments that you may make. I'm always fascinated to hear about it. In the meantime, please feel free to smash those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you peeps in the next episode.